Good afternoon, everybody. This is Tuesday, March 16th at 4 p.m., the Public Works Committee of the Metropolitan Council. We'll go through roll call. Councilmember Henderson.
Present.
Present. Councilmember Allen. Councilmember Allen. Still having trouble getting on. Councilmember Benedict. Councilmember Bradford.
I'm here, Chair.
Okay, good to hear from you. Councilmember Evans. I think she was going to. Yeah. Councilmember Gamble. Councilmember Hall. Councilmember Hurt.
Here.
Welcome. Councilmember Nash is here. Councilmember O'Connell, I see you.
Here.
Hope you're feeling well. And Councilmember Roten. Councilmember Young. Let me go back. We have 5. I think I need one more for a quorum. Councilmember Allen.
Looks like Councilman
Allen.
Hall is on, but he didn't respond.
Oh, Councilmember Hall, are you here with us? Councilmember Benedict? Councilmember Gamble? Yeah, there's lots of folks having trouble getting on today for some reason.
Mr. Chair, I do know that a link was sent out at the last minute that was not the one originally sent, so I have a feeling some people are struggling with that.
Yeah, I suspect you're correct. That's kind of where I was at. Mr. Harden, any help you can give us getting that new link to folks? I'd appreciate it.
The new link is correct. They sent that one out just a couple minutes ago.
I don't know if anybody can hear me. I can't hear.
We could hear you then.
And I've gotten a text from Councilmember Allen, who is an attendee now, so she can get bumped up. And I can tell you which number that is. It's
We got her name spelled funny.
Okay, I've got sound now.
All right, well, we got Hall. That gives us 6. Councilmember Allen's looks like her account's been hacked. The last name spelled A-L-L-E-M. Well, I'm going to go ahead and do the motion for the government's executive order while we wait for a few more folks to join us. Motion pursuant to Governor Lee's executive order number 78 regarding electronic meetings. I make a motion that this committee meeting agenda constitutes essential business of the Metropolitan Council and that meeting electronically is necessary to protect the health, safety, and welfare of Tennesseans in light of the COVID-19 outbreak. Can I have a second?
Second.
Motion and duly seconded. Any discussion on our electronic meeting if we get a few more folks in? Seeing none, you want to take the roll call, Mr. Director?
Sure. Henderson?
Present.
And that's aye as well.
Yes, Mr. Cooper, thank you. Aye.
Councilmember Allen? Looks like she is trying to get on. Councilmember Benedict. Bradford.
Aye.
Evans. Gamble. Paul. Burt.
Aye.
Nash.
Aye.
O'Connell.
Aye.
Roten. And Young. Councilmember Allen is still not been bumped up. So if IT, if you could bump her up, it's a 615-498 number. Have her bumped to a panelist, please.
I can unmute her and she'll have to mute her handset manually because I can't make a phone number presenter.
Okay.
In the way of a chair report, in consultation with Chairman Gamble of Public Safety, we have decided to cancel the March 23rd special called meeting to discuss LPRs and have moved that now to April 13th. Just gives people more time to do what they want to do in that area. And then from the Public Works Committee standpoint, at that time, I would like to, we'll just walk through each one of the amendments, bills, and do what the committee wants to do, but that'll give us plenty of time to do it in, as opposed to trying to do it before the meeting. Similarly, the discussion around RS 2021-794 regard to moving waste disposal responsibilities to the Public Works Department last night at at the Budget and Finance Committee. That was deferred one meeting, and I suspect that's probably something we'll want to do. But I also got the impression that we're going to need another special called meeting for that. So I have put out an email to Chairman O'Connell and to who else is Chairman Toombs to possibly have a special called meeting on March 23rd, kind of replace that meeting we had. Rosie's checking to make sure we're not bumping up against another meeting. So if we need to go longer than an hour, we can do that and get everybody's questions answered. And then we're on to staff report. At the last, just before our last meeting, Councilmember Evans had several questions in regard to the snow removal that she sent, and Director Whitelaw wanted a little more time to be able to respond to her appropriately, and I sent those answers to you earlier today. But Ms. Whitelaw, if you want to add anything to that discussion, now would be a good time. You're recognized if you can get on.
Thank you, Chair. I got the most recent link and was able to make it on, so I appreciate that. As Chair Nash indicated, not only did Councilmember Evans submit some questions, but we also had some other questions related to snow removal and ice removal in bikeways and sidewalks as well. So I kind of wanted to make sure that I addressed all of those, and we had a couple of supplemental follow-up conversations, but wanted to get this in your hands and just some highlights to let you know that it is actually a month ago, and here we sit in spring, but it was only a month ago that we were full of snow and ice, and I think there was some really great questions asked regarding how we work those things at Public Works. Just a couple of highlights. I'll let you read it and not take a lot of time, but one thing was, as you all know, primary and secondary roads are located on the website. And there was a question, which I think is really a good one to ask, is how do you upgrade that? How does a road become a primary? How does a road become a secondary? And how do we work through that? And so as described in our response, we go through and look at those, and we've already identified 200 additional lane miles that we would like to add to the snow routes and to our cleaning path. But of course, that's going to require additional staff and equipment and resources. When you're running 24/7 and you're trying to get things where they are. And we were hit with a 1-2 punch that about the time you thought things were good on Tuesday, it snowed again Tuesday, Wednesday. So we could have been moving into more secondary and or more neighborhood roads, but then had to go back around to it. So, but there is a constant review. Every time we have an event like this, we go back out and look. We're also constantly looking at roads that are accepted into the system. Several of these that were added by council members were related to where roads got extended. So it was a secondary to a certain point, but then since the last real event, that road had been extended. And so we looked through that and worked to that. So I wanted everyone to kind of understand that. And the other thing I think related to bikeways is we recognize there's a real challenge as we continue to increase our number of bikeways and bike paths, and we want to support that mode of active transportation, particularly as it's trying to get to maybe to bus stops or trying to get to places. It does come after primary and secondary roads so that we are responding for emergency response. So we are working through and diligent trying to figure out how do we remove snow from bikeways. Obviously, you don't really plow that, although there are little plows. It is a different type of equipment and a different way to do it. And once again, it's back to resources. So I always like to make that point to you guys regarding that it is something. And we had a conversation with Councilmember Benedict right after this too, which we had a good conversation that one of what I like to call a quick win that we're planning to do and we're already working on is sort of the snow resources document. Because I think we all sort of learned, I know I learned because I'm the new kid on the block, how much information is actually out there, but you don't realize it until the moment that you need it. You know, it's that kind of thing. So putting together sort of a quick sheet, quick find sort of, hey, everybody, it's your responsibility to clean the sidewalk off in front of your business. Hey, this is the order. Here's where you find the link to the map showing what a primary and a secondary road is. Here's don't forget to use Hub to put in your request, those sorts of things that we will now have that ready. So as we're all doing preliminary and prep work and we're sending out and we're seeing the weather department say these things, we can start messaging that on social media. We can send that to council so you would have it available to send out in your messaging as well, so that we're not kind of in a response mode, but we're in a preventive, not a preventive, but a pro mode of, hey, as we get ready, here's what we need to happen. So I think that was a really good suggestion and one we're working on now, even as we move into the summer, but we'll have that ready for the next weather event. With that, I'd like to, if you have any other questions or any other thoughts that you would like to bring up, address relative to winter, we're a few months away, but it'll be back before we know it. That's the way to say it.
I see Councilmember Henderson has her hand up. You're recognized.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Councilwoman Evans and Benedict for their questions, and Ms. Whitelaw for your responses. I think you incorporated some questions that I had about bikeways relative to snow removal, so I appreciate that. I wonder if you can clarify something that kind of came up through inquiring about cleaning the Shelby Avenue bikeway and sort of the disconnect when we have intersections with TDOT right-of-way. And so, you know, apparently the cleaning rotation had been made for bikeways and that Shelby Avenue bikeway was cleaned on March 10th, but the area that crossed over the interstate was not cleaned because TDOT is responsible for that. And so I'm just wondering to what extent we have an MOU with TDOT. I see, you know, three things happening subsequent to snows. Often we have major kind of pothole events or surface events because of ice. I saw that Councilman Pulley and I in our district, newly paved Hillsborough Pike got quite potted. And then, you know, this bikeways when they kind of intersect some of our state routes, but also more generally, and have noticed for many years, kind of where we have interstate on-ramps and off-ramps, and then they intersect with whether there are roads or TDOT roads, but really, really super messy, graveled, litter. And so it just seems like there are a lot of places where, I mean, I know we have a good relationship with TDOT and most things kind of get worked out. But I wonder if we need to have a more kind of formalized agreement around how these bikeways get cleaned, you know, what happens where, you know, on ramps and off ramps intersect, and, you know, what happens about potholes on state routes. And is there any sort of official agreement in that regard on any of those? Thank you.
I'm
Ms. Whitelaw, you're recognized.
Thank you. I'm talking, and once again, I'm having that drama of mute or unmute. So thank you for the question, council member. But several things I know, I think John Honeysucker can help me with a little bit, because cleaning of bikeways really, for the most part, falls under stormwater at water services. So there is an intersection there that we're constantly working on. And in fact, we have a meeting set up just next week to talk about some of those things that you're discussing, and I think Mr. Honeysucker can help with that. As far as potholes on state routes, I personally haven't seen our MOU, but I do know that there is an agreement with the state relative to potholes, in that, for the most part, Hillsborough Road's potholes would be a state response. And in your particular instance, we were there, and we thought that the request had come in for a local road. So when we went out and looked at the local road, which was Burton Court, it turned out that one had been filled, but the one on Hillsborough Road was right there. So rather than saying, hey, TDOT, not us, go do it, we said, okay, let's take care of the motorists on that standpoint. And I'm sure that TDOT has done that before with us as well. But we actually have a good working relationship in sending requests that are on state roads immediately over to them. If they get a request for our local road that we're responsible for, they send it to us. So I feel like we, generally speaking, have a good dialogue considering the number of potholes and other areas that we have. And as far as on-ramps and off-ramps, that is a challenge, but it really, for the most part, is TDOT's responsibility. But I do believe there's an opportunity for dialogue and to clarify that and get a better understanding. And Mr. Honeysucker, if you'd like to add a little bit related to bikeway cleaning, I'd appreciate it.
Chair, with your permission to speak.
Granted.
Well, good afternoon. Council Lady Henderson, as always, you know, we are working to have better communication, and along with both departments, being in honor of being able to represent both water and public works. We have decided to have a meeting. Actually, that meeting is to piggyback off what Director Whitelaw said, is this Friday morning at 9:30. It is a meeting with water and public works to make sure that we have the proper protocol and process in place, so that these type of situations that we're going to try to eliminate that, and also to have a better relationship with to make sure that we're communicating with TDOT. So we heard you, and we're going to definitely be responsive to that. We can't hear you, Calvin. Thank you.
I was just saying thank you, Mr. Honeysucker. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Hey, as a former emergency responder and longtime resident here, I think my sense of these winter events is, most times here in Tennessee, we'll have a snow event, and within a day it melts off, and bikeways and everybody get cleaned out quick. But then every so often, there's those major acts of God, I call them, events, that just have more ice and more snow than we are in any position to staff and make up. And those are occasions where I would ask, and I talked to several of my neighbors, this is time to be patient. No, your garbage probably won't be picked up this week. It's not because people don't want to, but if you've ever seen a garbage truck go sideways and roll down a hill, you'd understand why. I remember a salt truck on one of our streets here where the salt truck tried to back up to salt and still turned over. And we don't want those events. I mean, those things happen. So I just ask also when these events occur, and they're rare, when we have you can shovel in the morning and then it's snowed again in the afternoon. So we have to start all over again. These are kind of rare events here. So people be patient and understanding when this happens. On to the agenda, if we're all done with the questions and answer over the snow. It appears we are. Councilmember Henderson, you still have your hand up?
Chair, if I may, and I concur with you, unusual No events, absolutely. Bikeways, I do appreciate the meeting that's being held to coordinate between Stormwater and Public Works, because that is a persistent perennial problem. They are filled with gravel often. And I do appreciate that we had conversations about whether through 4% we needed to do kind of bikeway specific sweepers. As I understand it, the people we contract with to clean through stormwater for our curb and gutter roadways did purchase a specific piece of equipment. But I am very interested to know how frequent the rotation is. We clearly are not keeping ahead of it to keep our bikeways safe. And so I'm interested to understand, subsequent to your meeting, Ms. Whitelaw and Mr. Honeysucker, yes, this storm event absolutely precipitated some extra need there, but I think it's an ongoing problem that we need to make sure that we're addressing. So, you know, if we are doing a quarterly rotation presently, I don't think that's sufficient. And so then we might need to look at, from a budgetary perspective, you know, what's every other month or what's monthly, or, you know, really talk to the community that's using our bikeways. Because if we don't get them cleaner and more comfortable for people, you know, we're not going to get that latent demand of kind of nervous users. You know, you get in a bike lane with gravel one time and go a little sideways, and you probably don't get back on your bike again if you're a person like me. So, you know, I appreciate that y'all are having that meeting, and I look forward to the follow-up, but did just want to clarify it's not just snow events. Thank you, Chair.
Welcome. I have a consent agenda. Listen up, I'll go through it, and we'll pull anything that needs to be pulled. On page number 2, resolution RS 2021-822, O'Connell, Murphy, Nash, authorizes Muse Nashville LLC to construct and install an aerial encroachment at 65 Lindsley Avenue. We have a letter approved from Councilmember O'Connell. Resolution RS 2021-823, O'Connell, Murphy, and Nash, authorizes Cafe Intermezzo to construct and install an aerial encroachment at 205 to Mumbrim Street. Letter to approved by Councilmember O'Connell. Resolution RS 2021-824, Roten, Murphy, and Nash, authorizes Regions Corporation to construct and install an aerial encroachment at 201 Donaldson Pike. Councilmember Roten isn't here, but I'll go ahead and move that for him. Resolution RS 2021-825, Hall, Toombs, Murphy, and Nash, approves Supplement 1 to an intergovernmental agreement between the Tennessee Department of Transportation and the Metro Department of Water and Sewerage Services to construct on Clarksville Highway from RS 12 Ashland City Highway to State Route 155 Briley Parkway. Resolution RS 2021-826, Young, Toombs, and Nash, approves an amendment to cooperative agreement with the United States Department of Agricultural and Natural Resources Conservation Service to stabilize the stream banks and protect a main sewer line along Mansker Creek near Old Springfield Pike in Davidson County. I don't know that Councilman Young's here, but I'll go ahead and sign. I'm signed on to that and move it. Resolution RS 2021-827, Rutherford, Murphy, and Nash, amends ordinance number BL 2020-589 to authorize the Metropolitan government to accept additional sanitary sewer main for property located at Burkett Road and Number, also known as Burkett Ridge Phase 5. On page 4, we go to bills on second reading. Second bill on the page, Bill 2021-659, Toombs, Murphy, Nash, and O'Connell abandons a portion of Day Street right-of-way from West Trinity Lane southwardly. Bill 2021-660, Murphy and Nash, authorizes Gateway Poplar to install and construct, maintain underground encroachments in the right-of-way located at 750 Old Hickory Boulevard. Page 5. Bill 2021-661, Hauser, Murphy and Nash authorizes Crescent Nashville West LLC to install and construct and maintain underground encroachments in the right-of-way located at 7113 Charlotte Pike. We have a letter from Councilmember Hauser to approve. Bill 2021-662, Roden, Murphy and Nash authorizes the Metro government to negotiate and accept permanent and temporary easements for the 210 Belding Drive Stormwater Improvement Project for 5 properties located on Belding Drive and Eldon Court. Bill 2021-663, Murphy and Nash abandons existing sanitary sewer manholes and easements and to accept new sanitary sewer and water mains, sanitary sewer manholes, fire hydrant assemblies, and easements for property located at 5693 Cloverland Drive, also known as Plum Orchard Phase 1. On page 6, Bill 2021-664, Rutherford, Murphy and Nash authorizes the Metropolitan government to accept new public sewer main, sanitary sewer manholes and easements for 6 properties located at Old Burkett Road and Nolensville Pike and Davidson and Williamson counties, also known as 711 Development. Bill 2021-665, Syracuse, Murphy and Nash authorizes the Metro government to relocate a fire hydrant assembly for property located at 902 Murfreesboro Pike. And lastly, Bill 2021-666, Evans, Murphy and Nash authorizes the Metro government to accept new sanitary sewer, force and water mains, fire hydrant assemblies and easements for 3 properties located at Hesse Road and Earhart Road, also known as Ashton Park. Do we need to take anything off the consent agenda? Anybody? I don't see any hands. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, Director Cooper, will you take the roll call vote, please?
Allen? Councilmember Allen? Benedict?
Aye.
Bradford?
Aye.
Gamble?
Aye.
Hall?
Aye.
Henderson?
Aye.
Hurt?
Aye.
Nash?
Aye.
O'Connell?
Aye.
8 in favor, 0 against.
Thank you, Director Cooper. Okay, on the agenda, we have Resolution RS 2021-794, Rutherford, Nash, and Allen approves a memorandum of understanding to transfer solid waste disposal responsibilities from the Department of Public Works to the Department of Water and Sewerage Services, along with the related operational activities, personnel, and equipment. Do I have a motion? I think we discussed earlier, it's been deferred one meeting by Budget and Finance, and we will probably try and organize one more special called meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Defer. And
That's correct.
the motion is to defer one meeting. Am I correct?
I didn't make a motion. You made a motion. Oh, well, if that's the motion, then yes, I'll second it.
If not, then I'll make, this is Councilwoman Benedict, I'll make the motion to defer one meeting unless I'm the one seconding it. And Councilwoman Gamble.
All right, all right. Benedict makes the motion and Gamble seconds. Thank you. All right. Any discussion? Mr. Jameson, was there any thing the administration wanted to add? I know you didn't think there was any problem with the deferral and hoped we could make sure everybody was at least informed.
That is correct, and we'll look forward to the specially called meeting. Thank you, Chairman.
You're welcome. Any discussion? I see none. Director Cooper, will you do the honors, please?
Allen? Benedict?
Aye.
Bradford?
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Henderson,
Aye.
Hurt,
Aye.
Nash,
Aye.
O'Connell.
Aye.
8 in favor, 0 against.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper. And that takes us to the first bills and second reading, page 4 of our agenda. Bill number 2021-646, O'Connell, Nash, Hancock, and Welch, makes amendments to various provisions of Titles 2 and 12 of the Metro Code to facilitate the implementation and operation of a smart parking program. We have a letter to approve by Member O'Connell. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We also have a substitute being proposed on this bill. I would like to have Mr. Jameson speak on the substitute, if that'd be appropriate right now, or do we need to wait till that gets proposed? I see Mr. O'Connell's hand up. I'm going to go to Councilman O'Connell.
Oh, yeah, I was basically just going to suggest that if Mr. Parker wants to move the substitute, he could, and then we could get discussion from the administration. Is
Councilman Parker, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair, for the recognition. I think a member of the committee would have to move and there's 2 substitutes in your packet. One just includes a housekeeping amendment. It just changes the caption, and then the substitute that I think we're hoping to move and discuss here includes that housekeeping amendment and some other changes.
Okay. Is there anybody that wishes to move the substitute?
Chair, this is Councilman Hall. I'd like to make the motion to move the amendment.
Move the substitute?
Yes, the substitute. I'm sorry.
Okay. And any, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have the motion on the floor. I know the administration has some concerns about some legality issues and some of the other business issues regarding this. So I would like a chance for Mr. Jameson to address some of the, yes, Mr. Jameson, address those if you don't mind.
Thank you, Chair. And just to be clear, when the substitute was moved, I know we've got the first one, which is the adds a correction to the caption, adding Title 13, housekeeping, and then Councilman Parker's. I'm not sure which one was moved.
Councilmember Parker was moved.
Yes, I'll say, Chair, I was on Councilmember Parker's.
With respect to Councilman Parker's, we had not heard from the sponsor in advance, but this, for all intents and purposes, would kill the ordinance. This is an ordinance, if I understand the substitute, what it would do in essence is, and I think the objective of the sponsor is to preclude private contractors, and I'm sure there's a noteworthy aim of making sure that all of the vendors and private contractors, in fact, be Metro employees. That is not what's going to be implemented here. Before there's any private contract that would ever be approved or procured, the council would have to approve that by separate resolution. What this does is provides that option to council members of allowing vendors to provide their technical expertise in advancing parking abilities throughout Nashville. So I would implore the council members who do not want private vendors involved, don't object yet to the creation of the option. Object when and if those vendor contracts are brought to you. Two of the other larger problems in that, if I can back up and just give sort of a thumbnail sketch of what the various vendors that are offering similar services across the country are providing. You could imagine a scenario where you're driving, say, downtown, and you want to know what parking options you have. You would be able to pull up on an app an inventory of every then available parking space at a parking meter. Park in that space, pay from your app rather than a coin-operated device. The app, of course, being operated off your credit card. Then getting alerts that your time is expiring, being able to renew from your app, again, by credit card payment, provided you're within the time allotment. And then if there are any violation actions, those can be addressed as well. The problem with eliminating entirely the role of private enterprise in this is that municipal governments cannot be in the banking business. There is complicated state law that I do not pretend to be a master of that essentially provides that municipalities cannot be lender creditors. The finance department will tell you Metro cannot personally process credit cards, nor do we do that. So if you're taking private enterprise out of this, you have eliminated the app feature, which is one of the primary attractions to what the vendors are making possible. The substitute also goes on to change, and this is in Section C in 2.44070, Section 1. The ordinance provides in its proposed form that a citation would be based upon a parking enforcement patrol officer's probable cause to believe a violation occurred. The substitute would take out the provision that any citation be based on a patrol officer's determination that there's probable cause. That gets us in direct violation of state law 7-3-501, requiring that the officer be able to determine after investigation that there was probable cause. If we delete that language, we lose the ability to issue citations except only in those situations when the officer has directly observed personal observation while present at the scene when the violation occurred. We're also trying to staff up the parking enforcement. We're limited to 5 employees at the moment. The substitute does not help us there. Again, if your objection is to the private enterprise role here, this code change just allows, by code changes, that option to the council in the future. And if vendors come forward and provide an option that the council members want to approve, that's the time when you would be exercising the private enterprise market. But to eliminate all of that now by this substitute, we would request that this substitute not be approved. We would also ask that to the extent there are such substitutes offered, we are here and available and want to reach out to council members, anybody that has such drastic change legislation and amendments, and ask that you please approach us so that we can work with you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Jameson. Vice Chair Bradford, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. So my question about this bill is about the differences between it and what was being proposed a couple of years ago that many in this city did not want to happen, which was privatization of our downtown parking. It was bad then, but now it's apparently good now. So if the mayor's office could explain why now all of a sudden privatizing our parking is a good thing.
Thank you, Councilman Bradford. Right now, I think there's no disagreement among any parties that we are currently leaving millions of dollars on the table every year. We did the 2019 report on our parking system and our parking meter system, and we're only operating at about 10% efficiency, according to that report. So creating a smart parking path will create this path toward capturing much needed revenue and having more discipline in our parking regulations. A few examples of the differences between this version and what was previously submitted to the council. The previous version, you may recall, asked the council not only to approve the code amendments that make this possible, but to also go ahead and approve the vendor contract simultaneously. So you are being given the option of creating two options, but also go ahead and effectuate the contract. That, we think, is a little bit of the cart before the horse. The proposal here is propose the code changes, make sure you're comfortable with the options. Then procurement will go through and gather proposals from all of the companies that we've heard from, including those we haven't yet, and whose proposals, their technical abilities are being written into the code. And then once we have gotten the absolute best vendor proposal that provides the most favorable terms, then that will become the first proposal that comes before the council for adoption, rather than this all be done at once. The previous version was a 30-year inflexible contract. The previous version had enormous control over the parking meters by the vendors. Here, Metro retains the ownership of the meters, retains control of the parking meters, retains control of the rights-of-way and the curbside management. And that, we think, is a far better approach compared to the previous approach.
Thank you for that clarification.
Councilmember O'Connell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess my question here is for the sponsor of the substitute, in the sense of, I understand what my sense is the administration is basically asking for an update to the Metro Code of Laws to make some of our implementation of, a modernized parking program more flexible in allowance of some private vendor options. I guess my question to the sponsor here is, why not just, oppose the changes? How does the substitute kind of better position Metro in his view? Thank you.
Mr. Parker?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councilmember O'Connell, for the question. So this bill, this substitute, it really keeps all of the great modernization elements in the administration's bill. New payment options, for example, the description in the current code for what types of payment we can receive is very inflexible and references the old coin-operated meters that we all love so much. So what this substitute really does is it keeps all the modernization elements, but it dials back the privatization of management and enforcement of the program. And I think that gives us a couple of advantages over fully privatizing those functions. I mean, one is quite simply that, this business of private contractors issuing citations, immobilizing vehicles, I believe that I'm much more comfortable with those activities occurring as a result of the actions of a, say, sworn Metro officer than I am a private contractor. Immobilizing a person's vehicle is a very big deal. It's a hassle if you've got the resources to deal with it. If you don't have the resources to deal with it, it's a tailspin situation. And I think that is kind of the fundamental rub here is who's out there immobilizing vehicles, who's out there citing vehicles? Are those going to be Metro people, or are those going to be contractors? And the second thing is that our parking management program is really, it's bigger than just downtown. I mean, the downtown metered spaces are the only ones that are sort of tied directly to a direct revenue stream. And I think that if we build this infrastructure, if we go in the route of staffing up with contractor staffing, there's going to be heavier emphasis on management of the elements of our parking program that have direct revenue streams. And where we sort of lose in that scenario is our residential parking programs, which a lot of us in the urban core and near it, we have areas that our constituents have requested, resident parking. Enforcement is very, very spotty. I mean, it's one of those kind of things where, if we ask the precinct to get someone out there, they can do it once or twice. But I mean, they're so limited in their current staffing that they just can't have a routine presence checking out, resident parking areas. And I'm afraid that if we count on a contractor to expand enforcement in those areas, because there's not a revenue stream tied to it, we're just not going to get any improvement in that space. So I hope I've answered your question partially, Councilmember O'Connell, and I would, if I have another opportunity to speak before there's a vote, I would appreciate it. I think I would like to address some of what Mr. Jamison said as well. Thank you, Chair.
Councilmember O'Connell, are you have more questions?
I do have one follow-up, if that's okay, Mr. Chair.
Please.
I appreciate that, Mr. Parker. I guess my question then would be to sort of Mr. Jamison's point here is between where you are with your substitute and obviously where the administration would intend to take this program, do we think there is room enough for a compromise that could be accomplished on second reading through a revised substitute if we were to defer tonight?
I mean, I'm happy to respond to that. I certainly would welcome collaboration with the administration if there is a compromise that we think would be appropriate for these changes to the code. I think that the reason why I thought it was important to get to have this discussion and to offer this substitute was because this is our opportunity to have input. The RFP process is necessarily oblique. It operates more as a black box, and there's a lot of good reasons for that, but it also makes it very hard for us to have any influence in that process. So these code changes, I feel, are council's opportunity to really weigh in here. And so I would absolutely welcome the opportunity to work with the administration on possibly another substitute if this were deferred.
Does that answer your question, Councilmember O'Connell?
It does. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Councilmember Henderson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. And I'm not sure if my question is particular to Councilmember Parker's substitute, but I guess it's somewhat in the spirit of his intent. It's kind of a clarifying question for the administration. In the midst of the conversation in the previous administration, and Mr. Jameson, I appreciate you making kind of the distinctions about how this proposal is different. What was unclear to me was the kind of the results of the 2019 report. Absolutely, Council was keenly aware that we're leaving a lot of money on the table. You mentioned 10% efficiency. But I had difficulty kind of, sussing out based on previous questions we had asked in Public Works Committee, like to what extent had we internal to Public Works analyzed why, with our 5 staffing positions, if we were to do some of these modernization efforts, like the updated meters that take credit cards, pay with phone, sensors in the right of way so you can tell when something's occupied, unoccupied, all that good tech that a lot of other cities have already been doing. I don't recall ever hearing, and perhaps it was in the 2019 report that I'm not clear on where that is, but did we ever sort of price out, like when we were trying to make the determination about whether or not to administer this ourselves or to have this as a contracted service, I never really saw kind of the cost benefit analysis side by side of, this is what it would take to do this internal to, this is how much we would have to spend on physical assets amortized out over this time with this many staff members. I'm a lot more comfortable making a decision about putting something into, consultants or contracted services when I feel like there's been really good internal analysis to quantify the difference. And perhaps that's in the 2019 report. And I just wonder if Mr. Jameson could speak to that, please.
Sure. Thank you, Councilmember Anderson, and thank you, Councilmember Chair. So to back up and make sure we're all on the same page, if this ordinance, as currently proposed, is adopted, nothing changes. Nothing changes. You will have created the option to allow free market enterprise, what the vendors are proposing, to adopt those changes. Until the RFP comes in, we won't have apples to apples to show you exactly what the cost savings will be. We just know, and it is set forth at the end of the 2019 report, most of us, the cost savings issues had to do with the fact that with 5 enforcement personnel, 4 of whom are downtown, the violation mechanisms are the officer happens to be right there and then to make the citation based on personal observation in most instances. That is just not going to be an effective approach with the number of meters that we have. If you go through the proposed substitute, which is what we're still on, every single reference to private enterprise is deleted. And again, because we cannot implement, we cannot be a lender creditor, we cannot act as a credit card company, that eliminates wholesale the app, which is 90% of the efficacy of the program. If you are opposed to, and I wouldn't call it privatization, because to the extent we do rely on private enterprise and the implementation of services, but if you're opposed to this being used through any private enterprise function, the time to vote no would be when the vendor contract is put before you. But all this does is create the option for you. So vote against the contract, but not against allowing your colleagues to explore this option and at least to allow an RFP. I would be remiss if I did not call upon Faye DeMassimo, who's with us, who has far greater expertise in this, and I think can comment on the problems that are proposed by a substitute that we didn't see until 24 hours ago.
Thank you, Mr. Jameson. Mr. Chair, is it all right if I?
Please, you're recognized.
Thank you. I think Mr. Jameson's already done an absolutely tremendous job of laying out what the challenges are. I think to further comment, permitting this to move forward and enabling the RFP to advance, it will come back to council, and council will have the full opportunity to see what the distinctive differences are and to participate with the administration in that assessment of best value. And that is what the administration's aim is. We know that when we compare ourselves to peers in terms of the number of parking meters we have, but more importantly, sort of the density of our network, the activity levels and so forth, that technology and manpower is going to be required in order for the most efficient and effective solutions and the kind of enforcement that council is talking about as a part of this discussion. Further, I know that there's been a couple of comments and questions around more residential parking areas. And as you know, this particular RFP would focus on the downtown, Midtown Vanderbilt area and metered on-street parking. That does not mean that we're ignoring those other issues. In fact, I'm working with Metro Public Works and with Director Whitelaw now and with Councilmember Cash on a particular issue with regard to residential parking and how we can do some innovative ways of using our available manpower to address that on a rotational basis to start to really get a handle on that. While we're still working on, you're already aware of the Cord pilot that's going on in the downtown. The smart parking would be the next piece. Our downtown neighborhood traffic project, we expect to come forward here in the next few months that will also be analyzing for these things. And it does not just look at the downtown, but looks at the impact of traffic movement throughout. parking operational analysis that would include all of metro-wide parking, including residential areas and non-metered parking, which will all roll up in 2022 to the development of a modern curbside infrastructure management plan for council's consideration. And that's really where I think our ultimate game is. But these are building blocks toward it. This smart parking RFP is a key consideration of that. And again, I won't reiterate all the many good points of consideration and concern that Mr. Jameson has already outlined, but thank you for the opportunity to offer some additional information.
Thank you, Mr. Councilmember Hurt, you're recognized.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is what's going to happen to our current workforce? Will they be displaced? If they are going to have a move, will it be a lateral move or will they be demoted? Are they going to lose any of their seniority and all those kinds of things if this passes?
Councilman Chair and Councilmember Hurt, thank you for that question. No, there will be no loss. We have 5 employees engaged in enforcement now, and discussions have already begun. We are not presupposing passage of this legislation. We didn't want to get too far ahead of it. But in conversations with Council Members Cash and Councilmember Allen, they alerted us to the enforcement problems that are going on outside downtown, but in areas where there's restricted parking, but not metered parking. So, for example, 2-hour parking allowed at this location and so forth. Violations are occurring there, and they are less patrolled today than they could be. So one of the options would be to take the current enforcement personnel, hopefully beef it up, but allow them, now that we've got sort of automated enforcement, if you will, downtown, we can allow them to go to the hot spots that are in these outlying areas where parking enforcement is just as much a problem. But again, didn't want to get too far afield and ahead of ourselves, but we've already had preliminary discussions that there will be no loss of Metro employees as a result of this. Bottom line, however, keep in mind that adoption of this does not make that change. It allows you the option. And then if a vendor contract to your liking comes down the pike with terms favorable to Nashvillians and you approve it, that's when the real change would occur. This is just giving you the option.
So what about the demotion? I just have to have that plain and clear like you did with the no loss of job.
Yeah. There is no demotion. There is no loss of seniority. These are going to be, at worst, lateral assignments to other locations of town where the hot spots are, where the parking meters are not prevalent, but you still have restricted parking. Councilman Cash and Councilmember Allen can fill you in on their discussions as well. But yeah, there's not going to be any loss or detriment to the current employees that are serving us so well in parking enforcement.
Thank you.
Councilmember Parker, you wanted to reply to Mr. Jameson?
Respectfully, I mean, I know there's been discussion about, when is the appropriate time to maybe introduce a substitute or start this conversation. I mean, I recall that I asked to be involved in these conversations months ago, that I asked for drafts of these things months ago. And I didn't see it until it was filed either. And I would just, as a process thing, again, I think there's kind of a difference of opinion here. The council members really, aside from an up or down vote, it's my understanding, have very little input in the RFP process. So I think really in shaping what that RFP and what that awarded contract will look like, this is very clearly council's opportunity to do so. If we allowed council members to, there's obviously a lot of ethical considerations with allowing us to vote on which applicant we would prefer to win contracts. That's why that process lives in a black box and why we don't have access to it. So these code changes are our opportunity to impact the contract, the eventual contract. So, and with that, I would ask for either approval of this substitute, if a member will move that, or deferral for one meeting so we can work on another substitute.
Mr. Chairman, I certainly appreciate Councilman Parker what you're attempting to do, but I guess I don't know how you reconcile, for instance, that banking issue under your substitute with the modernization of our parking process, where you can use an app and kind of get us into the modern age instead of the horse and buggy age. So I personally would like to propose tabling the motion at the moment and moving forward with the administration's bill. And then as we see places going forward where we might be able to amend that, maybe do that. But I think your effort at the moment is kind of premature. And again, I think you missed that part about the banking. So I would move to table. I don't know if there's a second out there on that.
Chair, I am not super clear on the legal explanation that was offered. We use third-party credit card processors throughout Metro. I would love to hear a little bit more, if anyone from legal is on the line, about that distinction, because I just don't fully understand that.
Mr. Jameson, can you clarify?
This is Mike Jameson. I don't know if Terry Costonis is with us or Barbara Hagman is with us. It's Ms. Hagman that I would sort of refer to as the premier expert with respect to what banking exercises a municipality can go through. I do know that we cannot engage as being a lender creditor, that we cannot personally act as the credit card processing company for that. At some point, we would have to go through a private enterprise for credit card processing, period. And with respect to your substitute, eliminating every effort, every reference to private contractors, that is gone. The entire premise of the ordinance is gutted by, again, I believe, well-intentioned objectives, and I think objectives that you would have the chance to object to later on. In between adoption of this ordinance and a successful RFP bid process, I will disagree with you as to what role the council can play in that RFP. But even if that's true, the amount of time you have in between, you got a chance to file a completely separate ordinance rather than interject a substitute that we never heard of until less than 24 hours ago. I got the final ordinance draft when you did, and we encourage anybody that has significant changes, please reach out to us so we can avoid these last-minute discussions that threaten the very integrity and underlying intent of the entire bill. We cannot go forward with what was the intention behind this in modernizing our parking program without reliance on private enterprise. We just can't.
Chair, may I respond to that? I mean, it's the intent, and I believe what's in the legislation does not completely eliminate private contractors from the equation. Rather, it puts the actual enforcement. So that's immobilization of vehicles, that's issuance of citations back into as a Metro function. It's the intent of the legislation to still allow additional payment options, et cetera. I don't believe I touched the section on payment options. So I think we just might have a misunderstanding here. It does not remove every reference or completely eliminate the possibility of utilizing private contractors in assisting with the management of our parking program.
And Chair, I just have to point to Section C. This strikes out entirely the designee of the Department of Public Works may be a contractor. Below that, the traffic engineer may be a contractor is completely eliminated. Above that, 244.070 subsection C, the entire last half of that is eliminated, even the whereas clause referring to private contractors. The second one down. So again, we could have the opportunity to have these discussions if we're notified in advance, but not not at these moments. Again, the objective that the council member has, he's got plenty of time between now and the RFP process to submit a wholly new ordinance to address this new code section as a separate ordinance that we can sit down and discuss. But right now, it just completely upends the ordinance.
Mr. O'Connell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think given the discussion here in committee, I would personally favor a one meeting deferral, and I'd like to make a motion to that effect so that Mr. Parker and the administration can see if there's any way to get to a resolution here. I understand Mr. Jameson's position, but I'm kind of along with Councilmember Henderson's inquiry early in the meeting. I'm still looking for those the kind of underlying premise here that the only way we can modernize is to at least partially privatize. I'm still trying to figure that one out. I think maybe given the nature of this discussion, a one meeting deferral could be healthy, and I'd like to make that motion. Thank you.
There's a motion.
Second.
And a second. I see discussion on the motion. I see, well, here we go. Did I see Council Lady Henderson's hand up?
Chair, that was I was just seconding Councilman O'Connell's motion.
Okay, I see Councilmember Benedict's hand up. I see Councilmember Roden's hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just calling in to let you and John Cooper know that I have logged in and been listening to the bill, so I'll be voting on the bill. Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no other hands, I guess it's time to vote. Director Cooper, you want to do the honors?
On the deferral motion, Allen? Benedict? Councilmember Benedict? Bradford?
Aye.
Aye.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
Aye.
Gamble?
Aye.
Hall?
Aye.
Henderson?
Aye.
Hurt?
Aye.
Nash?
Aye.
O'Connell?
Aye.
Roten?
Aye.
9 in favor, 0 against.
Thank you. I think that is our agenda. That's it. I didn't skip one this time. Thank you all.
Oh, hang on a minute. You got a late file.
Oh, late file. I don't know that I have that in my packet. You're going to have to help us out.
The late file actually will come to the committee after it passes first reading. So the only committee that needs a recommendation on the late file tonight is rules.
Okay. Well, I enjoyed the meeting. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, Chair Nash, this is Councilwoman Henderson. As long as we have Ms. Whitelaw with us, I just wanted to inquire the 4%. There is about, I think, $500,000 in miscellaneous equipment and repairs from Public Works Department in the 4% resolution. And I don't know if Ms. Whitelaw could just outline that maybe in a little bit more detail than what was provided to us in our packet, as far as what that includes on the Public Works side. That's before us this evening at council, not this committee, but as Public Works is listed, I just wondered if we might make that inquiry and at your discretion, Chair.
If Ms. Whitelaw's still on, and I know we've got folks that need to go to other committees. I don't see Ms. White. Yes.
Chair, this is Director Whitelaw. 2 seconds. The $500,000 in materials is there's about $250,000 in salt to replenish the salt needs, and about $250,000 toward tree repair and improvements, and $100,000 Yeah, I think my math's off a little. It's 150, 250. I haven't looked at it lately. I think it's 150 in salt is for snow equipment and snow plow improvements and that sort of thing. So part of it is related to snow and salt, and the other portion is related to tree repair.
And by tree repair, Ms. Whitelaw, do you mean the emerald ash borer hazardous tree removal?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Okay. And may I inquire too, do we have sufficient budgeting in advance of operational budget and with our new traffic calming funding through capital, which we're all glad to see, more counters for the roadways, the bars and counters that go across the road to conduct the traffic calming? As I understand it, we only have kind of 2 sets of those. Is that something that we can acquire?
Council member, the equipment for that is less than capital necessary. So we have actually cut a purchase requisition out of our operating budget to buy one, and we're working on, as we move through operating, we get closer to the end of the year and we have more availability. So we aren't asking that out of 4%. We're actually buying those units because of their cost out of operating.
Right. So glad to hear it. And thank you for the EAB hazardous tree clarification. Appreciate it. Thank you, Chair.
You're welcome. Good night, everybody. See you later. Okay, where am I next here?
Traffic, parking, and transportation, I believe.